Hey, this is Fred Ottman, Tugboat Typhoon, the Shockmaster, the B-A-double-D, Big Steel Man. And the card is subject to change. Watch it.
It's a lot of thought, Nick. And I want to run it by you.
Sure.
I think the surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, Mantar. Everything has a more real sports feel, and it gets you invested that much more.
The dude's teeth aren't probably as big either.
It gives it more of a big fight feel. It makes it feel more real. If that glass shatters, I won't be ashamed. There will be happy man tears streaming down my face. Just the goosebumps will be bumped out. I'll hold my arm out like The Rock so you can see my goosebumps. And I'll have happy man tears coming down my face if that glass shatters. Oh, my goodness.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the 4-frequency sake tag team champions of the world, the Wizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello and welcome one and all to another exciting episode of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Low Pies Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Hello, that was a mouthful there. Welcome into the show, everybody. We got an exciting one here for you today. I am your host, never wrong, Nick Bull. I'd be remiss if I did not mention my tag team partner, my co-champ of the 4-frequency sake network. Wiz, how you doing, bud?
Man, I have been excited for this episode since I booked it a few months ago. We have a man who has been a champion in ZOA, 01, FLW, Destination, just to name a few. He is the current reigning, defending DreamWAVE world champion, having held that title, according to CageMatch.net, for 464 days during this title reign. Welcome to the show, Christian Rose, the king of the valley himself. How are you, Christian?
Guys, I'm feeling good. I know I alluded to it a little bit before we went on the air, but my schedule in life and wrestling is at a fever pitch right now. But overall, I'm feeling great. I'm happy to be alive.
This is a very special championship edition of the Card Subject to Change. We have the world DreamWAVE world champion Christian Rose in studio with us. And Christian, I'm going to ask you what I ask every other guest we have on here. Okay. What got you hooked into this world of professional wrestling? What radiated with you and pulled you in?
So my first memory of professional wrestling, so I grew up in southernish Illinois, kind of like East Central Illinois, and did not have cable, didn't have satellite TV until I think I was like 12, maybe even 14 years old. So you didn't get to see a lot of wrestling because we had 3 channels, right? And that's all just local network affiliate type of, stuff. Yep. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, swear as much as you want.
Okay, cool. Because I just edited
man, do what you want.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Fuck it. So my earliest memory of wrestling is, and I'm sure it was just a syndicated thing that was like being replayed, locally. But I saw, so my mom actually was kind of a fan, like before I was, and I'm like a child at this point or whatever. And she loved Macho Man Randy Savage. Mm-hmm. And so she's got wrestling on the TV one day, and they're showing the segment with Jake the Snake Roberts and Macho Man with the Cobra, with that.
Oh, yes.
Biting right?
A very memorable segment, especially at an impressionable young age.
I mean, I'm in like the single digits age. Okay. But there was already evidently something. Right. So I'm seeing this. That's my first memory of watching professional wrestling. Okay. And so like my mom's sitting on the couch and she's doing whatever and she's watching, but she's not quite paying attention. And I'm watching this. And I mean, like we all know the segment. I'm watching this actual snake actually bite a man.
Yes.
And no, there's no cops. There's no police. That was my first formative thought. I was like, I'm a kid. I'm like, where are the police? this is wrong. This is against the law. Where are the police?
Right.
There are none. So I'm like, just, it blows my mind. And I'm like tugging on my mom's pants and stuff. And I'm like, Mom. And she's like, yeah, what? And I go, I want to do that. And I'm like pointing at the TV. Well, she looks and she goes, oh, you want to be like Macho Man and wear the cool sunglasses and say, oh, yeah, and do the elbow drop? And I go, no, I want to be the guy throwing snakes at people.
Yes.
And she just kind of goes, oh. And so, like, that was, like, my earliest concept of pro wrestling was that you could do anything and get away with it. Like because I, even as a kid, I knew that, like, if I do that, if I go to school and I throw a snake at somebody and it bites them, I'm going to get in trouble. Well, that guy just did something way worse and nothing happened. So I was like, that's it, dude. That's what I got to be.
Well, shit, man. If Big Boss Man is getting hanged in the middle of the ring, nothing is off limits.
He killed a dog and fed it to a man. Like, oh man, yeah, that was what initially hooked me. And Jake Roberts was my first favorite wrestler. Like, even as a kid, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the other guys in that era, but like, he was so different because he seemed like a person that could exist in a real world. You know, like, everybody else was so bombastic, I think is the word I'm looking for, and like over the top. And like, I couldn't, as a child, imagine seeing Hulk Hogan in real life. I couldn't imagine seeing The Undertaker or Sid Vicious because they're like enormous.
Yep.
You know, they looked like gigantic action figures, and they were just yelling all the time, which is all fine and good. I'm not saying I didn't, enjoy that, but I just loved how Jake Roberts felt like a person that you could see somewhere. Like, I could not imagine as a child Hulk Hogan in a restaurant. Hang on, sorry, somebody's driving by. I'm sitting out on my porch. I couldn't imagine Hulk Hogan in a restaurant, but I could imagine Jake Roberts just doing stuff and then going out and being this like just evil, manipulative type of person. I loved the way that he talked. I loved his promos because he wasn't yelling. He was just, I was just, oh man, I just in love with the guy. That was what hooked me.
You're stirring up great memories for me because my dad's favorite wrestler when I got into it and got into wrestling was Jake the Snake Roberts. And you're right. Wrestling, I believe, is better when it's more believable. And he brought the believability factor to it, in my opinion. He's a guy you could see walking down the road. You're not going to see these other oiled up men walking down the road.
Right.
He looked like a normal person. I mean, that's what kind of always drugged me to Jake. And you're right. He didn't shout in his promos. He was very calculated and very quiet. And do you remember when he got the arrogance, the Rick Martel perfume in his eye and had that white contact? Like, how freaking cool was that?
It was so badass. So fucking cool. Like, I fell out of wrestling for a while once I got into like grade school because some asshole kid that I was in class with like shattered my mind and was like, yeah, it's not real. Well, I couldn't understand that because I was like, no, dude, I saw that snake bite.
Right.
But then like this kind of like broke me. So I got out of it for several years when I was a kid. So there was a lot of that era that I didn't see. And I've had to like go back and retroactively look, watch and study and whatnot. And I didn't get back into it until about the Attitude Era. And my dad got remarried, so I had a stepbrother. Well, this is when like wrestling's at like the most popular it had ever been.
Yep.
And he wanted to watch wrestling one night, and I was still like bitter. I was still like burned by like, oh man, it's not real, And he literally goes, yeah, I know it's not real. I don't care. Well, I didn't know that you could have that mindset. I thought you had to think it was real in order to enjoy it. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, people know. Nobody cares. The Rock is awesome. Steve Austin's badass. And I was like, oh. And then after that, hooked 1,000,000%. Never stopped. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like I had that several years in the 90s that I wasn't watching. And then once I realized that you were allowed to have that train of thought, I was like, I'm all in.
And you haven't looked back?
No, not once.
I want to ask you a question, Christian. You talked about that time that you missed being away in like the early 90s, and you have to retroactively go back and watch. What's some of your favorite stuff to go back and watch of the stuff that you missed?
Of the stuff that I missed, I do enjoy watching Scott Hall. Most anything that he did, I very much enjoy. I enjoy watching Kurt Hennig a lot.
Yep.
I think that watching young Steve Austin is fascinating to me because we know Steve Austin, right?
Right.
Young Steve Austin is a completely it's not even similar. Like, it's hard for me to believe that it's the same human being.
I know what you mean.
I love that. There's stuff that I don't get into because I wasn't watching it, at that time period. But like now, it's like, I understand it if you were a kid, whatever. I enjoyed The Undertaker quite a bit. I think it's wild to watch his early stuff where I felt like the character wasn't maybe as fleshed out as they, as it would become, obviously.
Sure.
That's always interesting to me. I also really enjoy watching old Barry Windham because I wasn't watching WCW at all. I didn't watch WCW until, the Attitude Era, like into the 90s and whatnot.
Okay.
But Steamboat's another guy that I really love watching. There's just a lot of stuff from that era that I missed that I go back now and I'm like, man, some of these guys were just so far ahead of their time.
Yes.
And I think that we give them a lot of credit. I don't think we give them enough credit. We give them a lot of credit for being stars, and for being over. I don't think we give them enough credit for how they were changing the industry and what wrestling is as it was happening. Rick Rude. Rick Rude's a guy that you could study all day. He was just a master of everything. Career tragically way too short. But at the time, it was just, I think, as I understand it, it was just, Rick Rude's awesome. I don't think people realize how awesome he was.
He was one of the first heels I was ever drawn to because he talked cool when he got on the mic. He was cool.
Yep.
And I always loved his tights. I thought he had the coolest tights with the designs on him, like the people's faces painted on him. And I thought he was so great. I loved him. I loved him as a kid. That was my first heel that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christian, I'll ask you here. You were talking earlier about watching Jake the Snake, the Snakes attacking Macho Man, telling your mom, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
As you get older, you come away from wrestling, as you're getting into your adult life and getting back into wrestling, what was that crystallizing moment that said, absolutely, this is what I need to do?
It would, if I had to pin it on one moment, because it would be hard for me to narrow it down. It was more like a time period, when I got back into it, like I said, it's the Attitude Era and whatnot. Well, then my taste had kind of changed. I liked the athleticism. I liked the guys that were doing cool shit. I loved the cruiserweight division, WCW. And I really loved the undercard for most WWF shows. When Chris Jericho debuted on Raw, I believe it was the day after my birthday, if I'm correct. I think it was August 9th of 99. There was something about him in that presentation because I think I'd maybe seen some of him in WCW, but it hadn't really registered maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about that entrance and that pose and all of that where I was like, that's my guy. Because Jake wasn't, really around at that point in 99, but I was like, that is the dude. That is what I want to be, because I was like, to me, he had the whole package because there were guys who could talk, but their matches weren't always great. And Jake is one of them. You know what I mean? I love the dude to death, but it's hard for me to pick a banger of a Jake Roberts match.
Right.
But I was like, fuck, man, Jericho at this point is the total package in my mind. I was like, the guy can talk. He can be funny. He can be a bad guy. He can be a good guy. His matches are great. So that was the guy where I was like, I need that. That's what I'm looking for. I need that perfect blend of you're good in ring and you're good on the mic. It's not just one or the other. So if I had to nail it down to one moment, that Raw debut.
Absolutely. Our good friend Tim Regal chiming in here said your beard game is on point. Dude. Also, I don't usually do this, but he asks if you have any good Moondog Bernard stories.
Brother, I'll tell you this. I actually do have my own podcast, shameless plug here. It's called What Are We Even Doing? We do have an episode that is just called Tales of Casey, which is an entire episode where all we do is tell Moondog Bernard stories. It is available for free $99 on Spotify. I have more Moondog Bernard stories than I care to tell. I don't know how long this show is. So let me just say, just look that episode up of my show. That's your best route there, Tim. Because I think it's like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
Plug your podcast again. I want to hear
Yeah.
the name of it and talk about your podcast a little bit and what you guys do on that show.
Okay, so it's called What Are We Even Doing? Me and young Damien Deschain, who's one of my students, fellow member of those damn Coyotes.
Yes, sir.
All the way back in 2020, things were kind of boring. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but
yeah,
he was a student of mine, a very good friend, a dear friend, even still, obviously, cohort, compatriot, whatever you want to call it. And we had just talked about, like, man, all the shit that we talk about when we're in the car, if only we could, like, share this with other people. Because he was very young and new coming up in wrestling. And I'm like, dog, I've done some shit. So, we started the podcast, and we deviate from it sometimes, like just for like fun bonus episodes and stuff. We do have a Patreon too, by the way. But the general gist of the show is that we will pick a wrestling show. It might be a pay-per-view. It might be an episode of television, something. And we watch it separately. We don't watch these things together. And then we compare notes and we review the shows.
Okay.
And whatnot. And sometimes we do like live watch-alongs. We do bonus episodes where we just talk about movies and, entertainment in general. But that's the core crux of the show.
Okay.
Is that we'll pick a random thing and we'll watch it. Sometimes it gets heated, because I've got my preferences. He's got his. It's great. Sure. It makes for the good banter. But yeah, that we started it just all the way back in 2020 because I don't know if you guys remember, but that was a weird year.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. So, and we're still going. I think we're planning on doing a little bit of a watch along later tonight. They don't know what it is. I told them, I was like, I'm going to have Deschain. I'm going to have Connor on the show as well as my lovely girlfriend, Meg. And I was like, I'm going to blindfold all y'all and set you down in the living room and have the button ready to hit play. And then you can see what we're watching, because otherwise you won't come over. It's going to be bad.
Oh no.
We're joined here by Kristen Rose on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. And you're the current DreamWAVE champion. I believe 464 days is this reign. This is your third reign having that title. What's different from the other two reigns from this reign? What's different about this one?
Well, one, I'm old. Two, the DreamWAVE, like the business model is different now. Way back when, like those first two runs, DreamWAVE was a monthly show, and we had a lot of, like, I will always, always, always be forever indebted to DreamWAVE Pro Wrestling and Jay Repsol, because like any name value that I have on the independent scene in the Midwest is because of that place. And he gave me an opportunity, and I hit it, nailed it. And then he gave me another one and I nailed it, and so on and so forth. So like, I will never say otherwise. Like, that place absolutely made me, and not that I wasn't working elsewhere, not that I'm not like appreciative of the opportunities I've gotten elsewhere, because I've done some really weird, awesome shit in wrestling. Like the checklist of things that I can pull out of my back pocket that I've done is genuinely insane. But those first two runs for DreamWAVE, I remember when I first started working there, and things really clicked for me pretty easy, like early on. And it was mainly because I could talk. And as you can imagine, the trick is getting me to shut up. But like, I could talk, and I was wrestling a different style than what the guys were at the time. So that helped. And I remember at first I was like, I want to be DreamWAVE champion. That's it. That is the end all be all for me. And I got it. And everything was a great run. I was so happy. I was doing the undefeated thing. That's a whole nother story in itself. The second run, I think people forget about, but I was like, it was short, but it was good. And my last match for that belt was with Mustafa Ali. And then DreamWAVE shut down. So, because like, you have people running the show and they're doing it monthly. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to maintain your audience and whatnot. So then that's that, that's the end of the world, brother. But so this current run, with DreamWAVE only doing a show every 2 months, I actually think it's a lot better. You don't burn out your audience as much. The shows seem more special. You can really load it up on the talent, oh man, it's nuts. The water's getting deep. And I mean, I don't know how far behind the scenes you guys get on the show or whatnot, but this run that I'm on right now really was never the plan. This is really just kind of an accident. And that was kind of the weird parallel with my first run in DreamWAVE and the whole undefeated thing. That was all very much just an accident that just got over with the audience. So then it was like, okay, well, the crowd's responding. Let's lean into it. Let's go with it. But I think that like now I'm a much smarter wrestler than I was then. I think that my work in ring is not as, I don't want to say it's not as action packed because I was young and I was dumb back then. Just like I'll watch some of my old matches back and I'm like, oh, that's why it's hard to get out of bed. But like I'm just smarter about stuff. I know more about like pacing and structure and match psychology now than I did back then. So I'm having different matches, but I still think I'm having very good matches. Patting myself on the back there, Barry Horowitz style.
Absolutely,
for sure.
And like I said, the schedule is just much better. And like the relationship I have with Jay is much different too, because like back then, man, I was mad all the time. I was full of piss and vinegar. And I was like, no, it's got to be this way. It has to be exactly this. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be this, or else everything is awful. And now it's just a much more, anything you need, I can make it work. Oh shit, John Morrison isn't going to be here until 2 minutes before the match. It's all good, dude. I got it. But back then, Tom would have been like,
Christian, let me ask you, in this current run, and you don't have to narrow it down to just one, but is there a favorite opponent that you've had in this current run as champion?
I very rarely rewatch my own stuff because I get mad when I do, because I'm like, man, this, that, and the other, this should have been later, that should have been earlier, whatever. But I did last weekend go back and rewatch a couple of things. My match with Jason Hades from last summer at DreamWAVE, I think it was in October, maybe. It was the show where we had Bret Hart in. I love that match. And I went
October 14th, brother. Right here on the wall.
I'm
right here on the wall.
Still got it. But I love that match. I think that's one of the best matches I've had maybe ever. I just absolutely adore it. Hades was over the moon about it. The crowd was up for it. And I was real proud of that because like he hadn't been there for 10 years. So that's hard to, when you're the dude that's been like the world beater for so long, and then you have a guy that's coming back and you're looking for that nostalgia, and everything. It can be challenging to make them think that, that can happen, that he can actually pull it off. And we had him. Like, that crowd absolutely loved that match. And I rewatched it and I was like, I was so happy with it. I did some fun stuff in it that I hadn't done before or since, and he's still so good. But I think of this current run, I really love that match. It was a bloodbath, but I loved the match with Hartenbauer back in December.
Good as gold, correct?
Did not like getting blood off of my white gear. But
there was a lot of blood that night.
Boy, howdy. But yeah, like it's also funny too, because like I've had like not a whole lot of like repeat, not a whole lot of rematches or everything. It's very much like, here's the thing, okay, that's done, on to the next one. But that match with Hades, I think, really sticks out for me as just something that, like, for me, that's what if I had to show somebody that had never seen me and didn't know anything about me, but they knew about pro wrestling, I would want to show them that match.
Okay.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we're about 25 minutes in. I know we don't like going much longer than an hour if we don't have to, so let's take a quick timeout, pay our dues to our sponsors. We got a lot more to talk about with Christian Rose, but we'll take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll also have our moment of focus. We'll be right back.
Football season may be over, but for frequency's sake still has you covered for all your sporting needs. Tune in every Sunday when the best professional wrestling podcast around, Cards Subject to Change, gets you caught up on everything inside the ropes. They won't miss a count with weekly analysis and interviews. More into auto racing? We've got a double dose for you on the track. Tune in to Fast Money with Rod Villagomez each week and win some money with the quickest bets in all of sports. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your basketball fix? Points in the Paint has you covered with live shows every other week looking at everything in the association. Backed by popular demand, we have the return of The Payoff Pitch, FFSQC's baseball show, covering you on news around the MLB. If you're missing football, don't fret. Mark and Dan still have you covered in the football lounge. Missing Joe Winkle? Probably not, but he's still here talking sports on Educated Ignorance. Football season might be over, but we've still got you covered. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
For frequency's sake is brought to you by Durham Remodeling, serving the Quad City area's remodeling and repair needs since 1973. Clint's Draft House, grab a bite and a pint. 7th Street, Moline. Lopez, New York-style pizza served up by the slice or pie, Davenport. Lifted Energy, energy drinks, coffee, donuts, and more. #GetLifted. Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles. Sports cards and memorabilia, vintage clothing, hats, pennants, and more. Ryan Allison Tattoo. Step into the vibrant world of tattoos with Ryan Allison. And A Cut Above, offering quality custom woodwork designed specifically around our customers.
Welcome to A Moment of Focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. This week, what are we focusing on? Well, I'll tell you what we're focusing on. You have one of the best in the Midwest, Christian Rosen studio. And one of the things that he's done is walk to the beat of his own drum. And sometimes in this life, stick to it. Stick to trusting your gut instinct, because there's something inside of you that no matter what you learn throughout this life, it'll never beat that gut instinct. So this week, focus on trusting yourself, trusting your gut, and following your path. This has been A Moment of Focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
Want to give a shout out to JT Energy. Always a pleasure to have him as part of our conglomerate here at Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fans for the fans. Just a quick reminder before we get back into the interview, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. Christian, I want to go back. You were talking about those damn Coyotes. Deschain, Connor Hopkins. We had Connor Hopkins on the show a few weeks ago. Go back in the archives if you want to learn about how the Coyotes came to be. I want to ask you something regarding Connor Hopkins, though. You being one of your students, was it a big proud papa moment for you when he won the Good as Gold briefcase? How did that feel for you as his teacher, seeing him accomplish something like that?
Oh, it was awesome. Tremendous. So happy for him. And the, what is it? The 54-minute man, I think he was calling himself. Because I think the next day we timed how long he was in that Rumble. No, I love the dude to death. I really do. He's smart. He's hungry. He's driven. He's dedicated. He works really hard. He has a love for the independent scene from the early aughts and 2010s that I enjoy. I don't have a bad thing to say about the dude. I think just the closest thing to a kid and a brother that I will have. I have brothers. Why am I saying that? I have real brothers. Just nothing but love for Coho. So happy that he got that big win. I'm so happy that he's having success at DreamWAVE. And I'm so glad that he's getting those opportunities, and he's tearing it up elsewhere too. You know, I think he's a champion for at least 1 or 2 places up in Minnesota, I think, and over in Rocket Pro in Joliet. But yeah, just so happy for him. Thought it was awesome. Thought it was great.
Our tribal chief, as he calls himself, DJ Jarvis, chiming in, asks if you can mail him a hat. He wants to be a coyote.
Oh, this. This is kind of like a custom made hat. This is a 1 of 1. There is a merch site, by the way, tdcshop.com, I think is what it is. Connor runs it. We don't have hats, but we've got gym shorts, t-shirts, duffel bags. I think there's a coffee mug on there or some shit. Water bottle, dudesy mugs. Yeah, check out tdcshop.com, I think is what it is. If not, I don't know. Connor's plugged it somewhere. You can find it. We got to get on for hats though. Got to get some actual hats made.
Absolutely. I would wear a
tight looking hat.
Thank you. I want to be a coyote thing. It's funny because like anytime that the idea of like adding people to the group gets brought up, 2 or the other 3 guys will pitch it, and immediately, no matter who it is, I just say no. Like, we're not adding anybody. I have to corral all 3 of you fools as it is. I can't take on anymore.
You're going to be the anti-NWO. You're not going to have 30 members.
Oh, man. That thing jumped the shark hard.
What member of the NWO did it jump the shark?
ThoseDamnCoyotes.com. I'm sorry.
Say that again. Say that again.
ThoseDamnCoyotes.com.
ThoseDamnCoyotes.com for the merch.
That's where you get your merch at, guys.
I was going to ask you what NWO member, by them being added, made them jump the shark. What was the member added that broke the?
I want to say Virgil, because I mean RIP and everything, but maybe the worst wrestler of all time, and that covers a lot of ground, brother. I mean, you don't want to speak ill of the dead, but it's hard not to. Virgil is not a good addition to the NWO. Who else? Conan. What are we doing? What are we even doing? What is NWO? There was at one point, I remember there was one episode of Nitro, I think, where the NWO arrives, and it's 2 limos, and seemingly it felt like a Simpsons gag where people are just getting out of the limos, and they keep getting out, and they keep getting out, and they keep getting out, and I'm like, there's 80 people. What? Why is it anything but just NWO Nitro or something? Nobody like, oh god.
It's funny you bring up Nitro. There's a lot of bad stuff on Nitro there towards the end, but there was also some good stuff too. There's some good underrated bangers to go back and check out on. Even
anything with the Young Dragons and 3 Count towards those dying days. Those guys were always tearing it up and like trying to.
Yes,
that was the other thing. They were actually putting in effort. Anything with Malenko, anything with Benoit, anything with Eddie, anything with Booker T. Actually, yeah, Booker T was always tearing it up, especially towards the end. Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff there, but man, you had to wade through some mud to get to it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
did. Christian, I want to throw back again. I want to take another throwback to our episode with Connor Hopkins. You said something that I found very interesting, and I wanted to make sure we brought it up today with you here in the studio. You said every wrestler should find their spirit animal. I want you to elaborate that on why you think that is a crucial thing for them to do.
So I think, all right, I got to lean forward. I got to adjust my seating position here. I think that the best thing about professional wrestling is the creative aspect of it. That's the biggest thing that I've always loved. It's not that I don't appreciate athleticism or anything like that, because I truly do. But the creative aspect of what pro wrestling is, I think is incredible. And I don't think people open their mind enough to what the creative aspect of wrestling can be. So when I say about like a spirit animal thing, the origin, so to speak, of like those damn coyotes / Christian Rose, old evil, bad coyote, was, if you can imagine, I was getting into some cans and I had the thought of, if the Christian Rose character was an animal, what would he be? And I was thinking about it for like hours and hours and hours. And then I realized, oh, he would be a coyote because like I'm tall, but I'm not like the biggest guy in the world. I'm not the strongest guy in the world. I'm not fastest. I'm not the most athletic at all. You know, I can't do a moonsault. But I'm very smart in ring. I'm very mean in the ring. I'm big on if there's an opportunity, you know, in my matches to take it. And to me, that's what a coyote is that they're not, you know, specifically intimidating. They're not, you know, huge. They're not fast, but they survive and they find a way to make things work for them. And I think that like more wrestlers need to think about things like that. Like, what would your wrestling character be if it was an animal? And what would your wrestling character be if it was a movie star or a movie character? You know, like years and years ago, I was trying to draw inspiration from different movies. And I remember when I was doing the Bitter Lunatic thing, I was big on Captain Jack Sparrow. I love the way that character, like, he would like move, where he's like, well, hold on. Yeah, mate. And he was moving as if he was on a boat all the time, even when he wasn't. And you can tell, like, okay, there's something about that guy that is clearly damaged, but you can't quite tell what it is. And, you know, I loved that aspect of that character, and I would kind of blend that into my promos back then, where I was always trying to, like, rock and move a little bit as if, like, I'm not on solid ground. And I think that, like, people don't, and maybe it's not that they don't, but maybe it's that they don't do it enough. I don't think that they delve into the creative aspect of, like, who you are as a professional wrestler, what you are as a professional wrestler. Like, you know, again, what would you be as an animal? What would you be as a pop culture symbol? What would you be as an actor? What would you be as a movie character? Like, you know, find a way to connect these things into that, because ultimately it's all entertainment. You buy a ticket to see a show, right? So that's what the spirit animal thing was. And I also go back to, there was an interview that Randy Orton did ages and ages ago when he was talking about when he started doing the Viper thing, when he had like the shaved head and he was moving comically slow on his entrance. He said that he actually, for that, watched the raptors in the first Jurassic Park movie because he's the Viper. Well, that's a biped that is reptilian. So that was the closest thing that he could get to how to study something for that body language and those movements.
Sure.
And if you go back specifically, like probably like 2009, and you watch the Randy Orton and you think, oh, he's just doing the raptors specifically from the first Jurassic Park movie, you'll never not see it. It's blatantly there, but you don't know it's there until you know it's there.
Okay.
For sure.
So spirit animals, coyote, that's what you relate yourself to. And then throw it in with those damn coyotes, and you got something really big and rocking and rolling right now in wrestling.
Yeah.
Talk about those damn coyotes for a little bit.
So like the group kind of just came together because we were traveling together. And we were doing a tournament show during the pandemic. So like, you know, no fans or anything. And honestly, we were just kind of like bullshitting in the car on the way there. And we were like, oh man, we should just be a faction. And I was already doing the Old Evil, Bad Coyote thing, which is just my bullshit version of Undertaker's Big Evil Red Devil thing that he had. Spoiler, guys, I'm a thief. So then we started coming up with like, oh man, we should just be coyotes. Like it was just some weird conversation in the car. And then we did it one time at this show with no fans, but like it felt like it fit. So then we started being like, okay, well, what's the roles of the group? And so it became like, okay, well, Rose is the leader because I'm been around, I guess. Connor is the right-hand man. Disjane is our technician guy because he likes technical wrestling. He's a pretty decent striker, you know, whatever. And then Berna is the wild card. Berna is our human hand grenade, where it's just like, well, we don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
And we were like, yeah, that actually makes a pretty good group dynamic, you know. I wish that we got to do more like 6-man and 8-man tags. I don't think we've ever gotten to do an 8-man tag with all 4 of the Coyotes.
Okay.
I would love to do that. But I wish we got to do more of those. But like the spots that I'm in, like some places, it doesn't allow for it, you know. But yeah, that was kind of the idea of the group and the group dynamic and whatnot. Yeah, it just, I don't know. We just kind of kept spitballing ideas, and then we were like, yeah, fuck it, let's just do it.
And on top of that, you got a bunch of cool merch.
Oh yeah, big time. Shout out to Connor for that. He's our merch guy.
Yep, he talked about that, about the designing of the stuff when he was on, and Gave us a tour of the Coyotes Den when we were on. We appreciated that. We got a big kick out of that.
Yep.
Talk about your latest reign has been a murderer's row of opponents. It's been all styles. It's been all sizes, all different kinds of fights. But one interesting person you've got to work with on a couple times is kind of an honorary Coyote in and of his own. Talk about Earl Hebner and working with him.
Oh, man, Earl. Okay, so here's the funny thing about the Earl Hebner bit. If you do go back and listen to old episodes of What Are We Even Doing?
Okay.
Disjane hated Earl Hebner. Hated him. Like of deep visceral hatred, right? Just thought he was an awful ref, just truly fucking hated him. So then I get told, oh man, Earl's going to be at the next show. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be funny. I was like, it will only be funny to have Disjane and Earl in the same locker room. You know, they may not even interact. Then I get told, oh, we want to have Earl in your match. And I'm like, hot damn. So the whole time I'm on board just to see Damien Disjane just to watch him stupid. You know what I mean? So then we get to meet Earl, and I'd never met him. And he is the coolest person of all time. He is the baddest motherfucker that's ever lived. So I remember that match. It was me and Vic Capri, and we're doing the last man standing thing. And the idea is for Earl to, in essence, you know, we got to do the screw job, dude. He'll never escape it, you know?
Right.
So me and Vic, we come up with some ideas. We come up with a finish. And I go, yeah, I think this is great. He goes, got it. Earl comes downstairs after his autograph signing and, selling merch and whatnot. He waltzes into, so at DreamWAVE at that venue at the Knights of Columbus, the actual locker room area is the bottom floor of the building, and it's huge. And there's tons of smaller rooms. So humble brag, but those damn Coyotes, we have our own locker room. It's just one office. It's just one office that I just absolutely claimed. And I was like, I sit at this desk now. It's us, and that's it. I get so mad when other people come in there. But Earl, wearing a cowboy hat for seemingly no reason, just walks into our locker room and says, what are we doing tonight? And I tell him, and he goes, all right. And he just starts telling us crazy stories about back in the day and working with Hogan and all this other shit. And he's the funniest dude of all time. He's also just two sipping beers. And he walks out of the room, and there's just this brief moment where we're all quiet, and Disjane looks at me and just goes, I fucking love Earl Hebner. And I'm dying. I was like, this is the hardest 180 that has ever happened, right? And I was like, he's just the best. This is awesome. He's so chill. He's so fun. So then a little bit of time goes by, because me and Vic are on last, and Vic comes into our room and just goes, dude, Earl wants to ref the whole match. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, he wants to do the whole thing. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Whoa. So I have to go sprinting across the locker room, find Earl. And he's like, yeah, I think I should do the whole match. And I'm like, Earl, one, you ain't young. Right. And we're doing a lot of shit. And we've already kind of got this whole finish played out. And he's like, yeah, but I just don't want to feel like I'm ripping you guys off. I'm getting paid. I feel like I should do more. And I go, hang on. And I explained, I felt like such an asshole because I'm explaining to Earl Hebner, who's been around the business longer than I've literally breathed. Hey, dude, here's why you can't do the whole match. Because then they'll know that the screw job's coming.
Yep.
You got to come out later, and then we can tease it and not do it, and then tease it and do it. And he just goes, you know what? You're right. That's a good idea. And so then I was like, oh, thank God. Plus, I was like, oh, cool. Earl Hebner thinks I have good ideas. But just that moment of me being like, holy shit. And then, because he literally says, he goes, I'm no spring chicken, but I can still go. And I'm like, Earl, we're not asking. Whatever. It was nuts. And then we did the big reveal, and he pulls the ref shirt off. He's got the Coyote shirt on underneath. I loved it. It was so awesome. Crowd absolutely ate it up. And he is just the coolest dude ever. But man, Disjane doing that full hard 180 on it is just the best thing.
That's cool. That's
awesome.
probably is that the best thing that's happened since being part of those damn Coyotes? That moment there.
It would be hard to narrow it down. There was one moment at a show in Joliet for Rocket Pro where Connor wasn't there for this one, but basically at the end of the show was this big brawl between like warring factions, right? And it's me, Deschain, and Berna. And honestly, I just didn't want to do it. And so, at the end of the show, it's like the three of us, and then there's like 4 or 5 guys from this group and 4 or 5 guys from this group, and they all come out, and we're all supposed to brawl and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, in the moment, I'm down on the ring, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I just army crawl over to Berna while I'm getting like stomped on. And I go, hey, let's get out of the ring. And he goes, well, where's Deschain? And we look over and we see him over in the corner, and we both army crawl over to him. And we go, hey, get out of the ring. And we go to the floor, and they're like, what now? And I go, and I just rolled under the ring, and they followed me. And we just hid under the ring for the next, like, the show ended. Nobody knew where we were. The people that were in the brawl were like, what happened to the Coyotes? They're just gone. And we stayed under the ring until like the show ends and fans are leaving. We just stayed there. And I was like, we were having such a good time underneath because we were like listening to everything that's going on. And I'm like, this is way better than being in this brawl. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I kind of only want to be under the ring forever. And then as we were like, we could tell when the show ends or whatever, and it starts to get quiet. And I go, well, I guess we have to leave now. So we go across the ring underneath to the opposite side, which towards the entrance. And as we're like looking out to make sure the coast was clear, one of the staff members got a picture of us, all three just peeking our heads out from under the apron. And then we get to the back, and all the other like 8-10 guys that were in that brawl were like, where were you guys? Did somebody get hurt? And I go, nah, we're just wanted to go into the ring. We're just bored. Like that one, that was a great moment. The first like quote, I guess, official DreamWAVE show back, or maybe not the first, the second one, was an outdoor show at Luz Grotto. And we had a moment where we were toasting beers in the ring, all wearing Pit Viper glasses.
Okay.
Sunglasses, just for no good reason. Those were a gift from my lovely girlfriend's brother, and he just got us all Pit Viper sunglasses. And they're like, so what are we doing after your match? I go, I don't know, just come out, we'll have some beers and wear Pit Vipers. And they're like, why? And I go, couldn't tell you.
And it worked.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun.
Christian, as we get closer and closer to the hour mark here, I don't want to keep you all night, but a couple things we like to do. We're called Card Subject to Change. There's a reason for that. And I want to talk to you want to play a little fantasy booking with you here. Ooh. First question I'm going to ask, is there any opponent that you haven't faced or maybe have faced and it's been a long time, any opponent, past or present, that you would like to step in the ring with?
How realistic are we talking?
As realistic or fantasy as you want to go.
John Moxley.
Okay, I can get behind that. I can see that.
I don't know how realistic it would be, especially right now with that whole IWGP belt. I would move heaven and earth to have a match with John Moxley.
Interesting.
I think.
I like
yeah,
it.
I used to get a lot of comparisons to him when I was a lot younger. I'm a big fan of the guy's work. I love that it's physical. I love that it's ugly. I like that I just love the style. If we're talking like maybe something a little bit more attainable, if I could get my bitch ass friend Matt Cage to come back for one more beating, I would love to whip his ass again.
Okay.
Man, I will never turn down a match with Vic Capri. I think he's just one of the best. That's a guy that like doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and it almost pisses me off. Like Vic is the definition of a professional. And he's great in the ring. He's given so much of his time, so much of his health, so much of his body. I nothing even close to negative to say about the guy. Yeah, but I guess if we're going like full tilt fantasy, hey J-Rep, if you're listening, get me Mox.
I'm
sorry, I got another one. Chris Hero. because I have stolen all of his shit. I would love to have a match with Chris Hero.
I would be front row for any of those matches if I could make it happen.
Yeah,
I just got to tell you. Is there any storyline that you could see yourself having fit in to make it better or to just tweak it a little bit that you've watched in wrestling?
Oh, like something I've watched where I'm like, oh, I wish I had been part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Bullet Club. No, obviously, dude. I off the top of my head, it would be hard for me to say. Like most of the time, like I have stories that I like to tell. You know, I like to jazz it up and do different versions of them and everything. I'm not saying that there's not an answer to your question. I'm saying I can't think of it at this exact moment.
Too many to narrow down.
Too many to narrow down. Too many where I'm like, oh, maybe that was as good as it was going to be. Maybe I would have made it worse. You know.
Fair.
But man, that's a good one. If I had known that was a question in advance, I might have been able to give you a definitive answer.
Well, I'm going to just say this. We want to have you back at some point. So put a pin in that for the next time you're on.
Absolutely. Oh man, it should we talked about it earlier. Big boss man Al Snow feeding Pepper to yeah, I should have been somehow involved in the Kennel from Hell.
Oh my! I'd be there for that.
I may
the
have
boss man hanging is just a
by
lasting
with
impression I
their
can't get out of my mind.
Anything that gets me into a Punjabi prison match.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
Oh.
What a Duke-tastrophe of a concept that was.
God. Oh.
Our friend DB Broadcasting, Rose versus Hero, book it, Jay. And then he replied, the King of the Valley gets what he wants.
Yeah, dude. Well, hold on. That's not true at all, brother. Oh, man. Love you, DB. Good dude.
Talk about becoming the King of the Valley, staying there. What's going to keep Christian Rose in that spot? What's going to keep Christian Rose in that spot that you're in?
So the King of the Valley thing, basically it was like, okay, we got to like evolve the character a little bit. Like what is it now? Which I'm big on. I like to evolve the character, get set, people know what it is. Then you change it up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you evolve that character, you get set, people know what it is, and then you change it up again. The King of the Valley thing, I basically was like, okay, I'm very happy with wrestling. I have a very good schedule right now. I'm not making the long drives quite like I used to. Like, I'm still down to travel. I'm going to Minnesota next week, stuff like that. But I kind of got the idea actually from a movie that I don't really even care for, The Lord of the Rings, where Smaug should have been my street ball name, the big dragon one, where like his whole thing is he's got his treasure in that cave in that mountain, and he doesn't care to leave there. That's it. He has his gold. He has his location. And the only problem is when people come there and try to take it from him. Then he has to fuck them up. So I was like, I like that as a concept. And I live in the Illinois Valley now. I've lived here for a decade. And I absolutely love this area so much. I'm so happy here. So then I was like, oh, man, I'm going to blur the coyote thing with Smaug. And, it's the King of the Valley, where the idea is now like, I'm not a traveling champion. I'm not bringing my championship to you. If you want it, you have to come to me.
I like that.
You have to fight me on my turf.
Yep.
Fuck these other places. So that's kind of where that, the idea came from and what it is. But where it goes from here, I'm not sure yet. I think that but I love the idea of flipping it, because you see the traveling champion thing a lot, and that's all well and good. There's nothing wrong with that. But once I got the idea of like, no, I'm not going to you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting in a car for 12 hours each way to defend my title against you. If you want my title, you sit in a car 12 hours each way and you come to me. But because I don't know. I don't know if I've seen it done before, and if I have, not as well. Where it goes from here, I don't know. We're at, what'd you say, 460 some odd days on this run?
464, yes.
464 in this morning. Holy hell. I don't know. Maybe I hit 500. Maybe 600. Who could tell you?
I can tell you that collectively with your 3 title reigns, you are 9 days away from 900.
9 days away from 900. Okay. I have to try to remember that. I got to start using Cage Match more often. DreamWAVE posted like some stats about me like a month and a half ago. And I was reading, I was like, I didn't know any of this or whatever it is. Like my win-loss record at DreamWAVE is insane or some shit. And I was like, I had no idea.
And it's got to be cool to see that after the fact, because obviously that's not what you're doing it for. You're doing it for a deeper love than that. But to see that stuff is pretty cool.
It is, especially because like when I first started wrestling for DreamWAVE, I was driving like a 4.5-ish hour drive each way, usually by myself at first. I was new, so I wasn't making a ton of money, you know. But it was like I was dedicated. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm being given this opportunity. I got found. You know, they saw a promo of mine and knew I could talk. So I got found, and I was like, this place is doing tryout matches. And I got called out of the blue, you know, like a friend of a friend, WWE referee, actually, Jason Ayers, was a friend, is a friend of mine. And he had my number, and Jay had asked about me because he saw one of my promos. And so Jason Ayers gave Jay my number. So I wake up one day and I've got a message from this strange number that says, "Hi, I run DreamWAVE Wrestling. Would you like to wrestle for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, a lot."
Yes, please.
But yeah, please, anything. What do you need? I'll be there today. But yeah, I would do those drives a lot of times by myself until some of the other guys that I was traveling with got on. You know, and like I said, like at first wasn't making a lot of money, which I get it. I'm new. You know, like that's the way it goes. But yeah, I was just like, no, this is where I got to be. This is what I got to do.
Fantastic. Christian, before we wrap things up, tell everybody who might not know where we can find you on social media and where they can see you in the ring in the next couple of weeks and months.
Social media. You can find me on Snapchat at Bitter Lunatic because evidently I'm a 15-year-old girl. You can find me on Twitter at WowEd Podcast. That's WAWED Podcast because I'm just running that Twitter now and not even trying to pretend it's for the podcast anymore. But when promotions tag me, they're advertising my show. So, and you can find me on Instagram. I finally got on Instagram because it's 2014 at Wrestling Coyote. I'm on Facebook. Don't add me on Facebook. I kind of just use Facebook to communicate with some people and to peruse Marketplace for cars and four-wheelers and other things that I should not buy but probably will. As far as where you can find me in the next few weeks, this coming Saturday I will be in Minnesota for Pro Wrestling Battleground. You can always find me at St. Louis Anarchy. You can always find me at Rocket Pro in Joliet. Obviously, always at DreamWAVE. I'm doing some shows for Zawa Live this summer as well. They've got like a lot of fair shows and summer tour coming up. And I'm like, yeah, I love to sweat. Let's go wrestle at a fair again. I occasionally pop up out in Magnum, out in Omaha. And yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit of everywhere. Those are my usual haunts. Those are my usual bookings. Those are my usual places.
Well, I want to speak for my tag team partner, Mr. Never Wrong, Nick Bull, and say it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. A lot of fun tonight. Can't wait to have round 2 with Christian Rose because I think it's going to be just as fun. And I feel like we've barely scratched the surface talking with you.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, the trick is getting me to shut up. Happy to be here. I would love to come back. I could do this all the time.
Good. We loved having you, and it was truly an honor to have the DreamWAVE World Champion on the show, telling stories and hanging out with us for an hour. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, bud.
Anytime, guys. Happy to be here.
Well, that is going to wrap us up for tonight on Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fans for the fans. Next week, we will have our reactions to the King and Queen of the Ring and Double or Nothing, as that's coming up on Memorial Day weekend. But in the meantime, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook Country Financial. You've been listening to Cards Subject to Change. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.